Hello the internet and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to repaste my own laptop. It's kind of a newish laptop, it's about a year and a half old, so I'm not even sure whether I need to do it, but you know, I like tinkering with things. It's Lenovo Yoga Slim 7 Pro X. This is the AMD version. They made two versions, of course. There was the Intel version and the AMD version. This has the AMD Ryzen 7 6800HS. It's an 8-core CPU. It's quite nice. I quite like it. It's got 32 gigabytes of RAM and a 3050 4 gigabytes along with the AMD graphic, basically. Now, unfortunately, it only has 4 gigabytes, so it's more or less useless with anything you're going to do. But I didn't really buy this for big tasks. It's just it came with the 3050, came with 32 gigs. Why not? I can run Resolve on it every now and then. It's not entirely stable, but I can still running. Now, I don't really have massive problems with this laptop. It feels like the fans are kind of the fast side, despite being a Ryzen. I understand the Intel version of this laptop is way too noisy because the Intel generates much more heat than the Ryzen counterpart. And I remember when I was reading reviews, the reviews were saying the AMD is quite nice. The Intel, it gets a bit annoying when it's on your desk and the fans are spinning all the time. So really, I don't need to do this. It's just I'm curious to see whether I can squeeze something out of this laptop, not in performance, but in noise, maybe in temperatures, just because I want to do it. There's no good reason for doing that. Only recently, I've learned about the pumping out effect that you have when you're pasting something which is like bare die, like a GPU, or in this case, a laptop CPU, which doesn't have a heat spreader on top. I was not aware of that. I've been using my MX4 paste for everything. And what I've learned is that with high temperatures, the constant contraction and expansion of the metals, the materials, the paste can actually be pumped out, as the name suggests, or allow some air bubbles in. That obviously takes quite some time, like months, I guess. And then eventually you might end up with reduced performance because the paste is not effective anymore. So I understand that when you're dealing with GPUs and bare dies, you need a more viscous paste. And I thought I got some Duronaut, if I'm calling that the right way. It's kind of a recently announced paste, and I understand it's like very good quality, very good performance, not too expensive, though it is expensive. Most importantly, it's suitable for bare dies, so it's a bit more viscous and it doesn't get pumped out, it doesn't get air in between the die and the heatsink, so it should be suitable for this application. Now, before I'm swapping the paste, I'd like to try and record the current status of the laptop. So I've got hardware info open and I'm going to record to log all the data. So hopefully then I can draw some nice graphs and see if we can see the difference in before and after. Chances are we won't see any difference. Chances are the difference is going to be minimum, even though I wouldn't mind a couple of degrees extra, when it comes to a laptop, probably does help. Chances are I might make it worse, because who knows, maybe Lenovo are using something super performant for this machine. This machine, I paid it £800. It was refurbished from Lenovo, directly from Lenovo. It was basically brand new. It was definitely either a return or maybe a computer which got like the box damaged, and rather than have another box or something, they just sell it as refurbished. But I believe the list price for this machine was like £1,500, £1,400. So it's not a super cheap machine. You never know, maybe Lenovo used a better thermal paste. Maybe I'm going to make things worse. Bear with me and we'll find out together. Also, I'm not expecting too much, because if you compare the difference between like the MX4 and the Cryonote, or the best paste on the market, usually the difference is like a couple of degrees. That's why I never really bought anything by the MX4, because yes, it's not the best, but the best is only a couple of degrees better. So I'm not really expecting too much. And the laptop is only a year and a half old. Has the paste deteriorated so much that the laptop is now struggling with temperatures? I have no idea. We'll find out in a minute. This is just for fun, and also find out whether this paste is actually good or anything. But this is mostly for fun. Now, there is a big limitation with this laptop that probably won't allow me to do a fair comparison between the before and after. And the reason is I cannot control the fans, and I can't even see the fans on this software. I can't see fans on hardware info. I can't see fans on hardware monitor. I can't control the fans anywhere. There's only a sequence of buttons here with FNQ. I don't know how much you can see that on the screen capture, but I can set the machine for high performance, which allows the CPU to go at maximum 65 watts, or like intermediate or low performance, which basically, you're on battery, you need a laptop for many hours, and you can set the laptop to power saving. The laptop won't go over like 15 or 20 watts, but the battery obviously will last more time. Obviously, when I'm in performance mode, the fans will start spinning faster, but the thing is, I can't control it. And why is that a problem? The problem is that eventually the laptop, the design of the firmware will try and keep the laptop as quiet as possible. So with a good paste or with a bad paste, you're still going to reach 90 some degrees, and then the fan will try and keep the temperature controlled. So maybe the processor is not throttling, and that's it. But it will still go to that temperature. That's what I'm thinking, at least. We'll see in a minute. I'm not really expecting to see lower temperatures. If the CPU gets cooler, the fans will just slow down until it gets to that temperature. Because again, it's a laptop, and what mostly matters for most users is the noise. So they try and keep the noise a minimum. But without being able to control the fans and even see the RPMs of the fan, eventually I can only compare how fast the CPU is going to a certain temperature, maybe see whether my benchmark test, I'm going to run the usual Cinebench and that kind of stuff, am I getting a better value? I don't know. I'll do my best. I'll record all the data, and then we'll try and compare and see if we can see any difference whatsoever. But unfortunately, again, I cannot see the fans on the system. So that's it. That's unfortunately, it's in the equation. I would have set the fans at 100% for the before and after, so that was out of the equation. Unfortunately, I can't do that. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to lift the laptop a little bit, because the air obviously is coming from the bottom of the laptop. And I always feel that the fan intake is a bit too close to my desk. So I don't know, just to be on the safe side, I'll put these little plastic sticks under the laptop, so the air intake is not impeded in any way. For this test, I'm going to use a Cinebench in multi-core. Again, this is not a benchmark, so I've got stuff running in the background, including OBS, but it's going to run afterwards as well. Again, this is not a benchmark. I'm going to record all the data from hardware info, so eventually I'll take a look at the data and decide what to use. I'll make some hopefully nice graphs that hopefully will tell us something. Computer is connected via the original power supply, which is 100 watts power supply. The battery is already 100%, and I've got the internet disconnected, so nothing should be happening extra in the background, like updates or something which the operating system might use to skew the results of this test. So I'm going to start the login now. I'll call it before. Overwrite. That was a failed test I was doing before. And I'm going to start my 10 minutes test throttling here now. I've got the yoga in performance mode, so you can see that the CPU power is going to 65 watts right now. It's boosting at 65, and then in a few seconds it will just slow down to something. 54, I think it is. There you go, 54 watts. I think that's normal. I don't think there's any throttling. No, there's no throttling reporting by hardware info, and Cinebench is running. The fans are getting a bit crazy, but again, right now the temperatures are not too bad. Got 86 degrees on the CPU, and it doesn't say any thermal throttling, so far so good. In fact, if I'm looking at the thermal limit on hardware info, it seems to be suggesting that we are running at 93% at 88 degrees. So I'm assuming the CPU probably can run at 90 plus degrees, and it's still going to be okay. So far so good. This is not throttling. 88 degrees, so that's below 90. This is kind of coldish in here. I think I've got like 16 degrees at the moment. It's kind of cold, and I'm keeping the heat pump switched off intentionally, because sometimes it just blows hot air on the desk, and that will definitely affect the test a bit. But so far it's not too bad. We are at 89 degrees, and thermal limit is still 94%, and there's no throttling according to the data here. We got 3 minutes and 46 left. I am definitely impressed. The temperature has definitely stabilized at 91 degrees. I guess that's probably the target in the firmware to make sure that the system is as quiet as possible. It's not moving from 91. It's hovering between 90, 90.5 or something like that. GPU obviously is not being used, so it's stuck in there. And the fans are, yeah, they're noisy, but you know, it could be better, it could be worse. So pretty impressed. I thought it would actually go over 90, though once again I've got 16 degrees in here. The laptop is a little lifted from the surface where it's standing, so I guess like in a warmer situation, 20 plus degrees with the laptop sitting on something and maybe with some dust, because I actually cleaned the heatsinks and the fans last week, so everything is pretty clean. I didn't touch the heatsinks, but I definitely cleaned the fans and the heatsinks. I guess it would probably be easy to go over and trigger the thermal throttling. Let's say that this laptop seems to be well designed to run okay at its limit. As you would expect, they try to make the laptop as quiet as possible. And at the end of the 10 minutes, we have 547 points. The temperature is, maybe it's gone up a little bit. No, it's finished now, but what's happening? 93. Okay, well, it went up to like 92 maybe, but it was more or less stable at 91 point something. And that's it. At the end of the rendering, we've got 547 points. And I'll put everything in a graph and we'll see how it goes. Now we can open this laptop and replace the thermal paste and see if by any chance we can improve this, I would say, pretty good result already. Okay, well, the heatsink is out. The thermal paste is definitely not dry. Whether the thermal paste is properly applied, I'm not sure. Whether it's a good thermal paste, I don't know. I definitely see like some bold patches, let's put it away, though that could mean that it's just the central part of that's the CPU, was actually making perfect contact with the heatsink. I don't know. Kind of feels to be uneven in distribution. So I don't really know. What do you think about it? Let me know down below in the comments, because I'm really curious. I'm not a massive expert when it comes to that. Does that indicate like a good application of thermal paste? Does that indicate a good quality thermal paste? I have no idea. But right now, let's remove everything, clean everything, and then we'll try and apply the Duronaut, which I'm using for the first time, so I'll have to experiment myself. Now, something I've noticed, which is not great from Lenovo, to be honest, is that I was looking at these memory chips. These are the VRAM for the 3050. So that's the 3050, that's the Ryzen. And I noticed something weird, like as the pads are only touching some of the modules. And that's true, because if I'm looking at the pads here, and you can clearly see that only like 1 out of 2 of the memory chips are touching the pads. That's not great, and I don't think I can fix that, because that probably implies that something is bent, it's not straight. I don't think there's anything wrong with the pads, and it's probably going to be quite difficult to try and fix it with a pad. And probably what actually can happen is that if I try and replace the pad with something thicker, it would probably prevent the CPU and the GPU from touching the heat sinks correctly. So I don't think that's something I want to try. But that's definitely not something that you'd like to see. That being said, it's a 3050. Do you need cooling on a VRAM on a 3050? Probably not. But if you're gonna do it, do it properly. So let's remove the thermal paste from both, and then we'll go and install the Duronaut. So the thermal paste here, I mean, it's not completely dry, but it's definitely not in the greatest shape. As you can see, I'm touching it. Yes, some paste is coming out. Maybe the GPU is in a better shape. Yeah, I'm quite curious to see what happens with the new thermal paste, whether there's any improvement or not. be honest, I feel there is too much paste. I mean, it's hard to say, but I think there's like 0.5 millimeter of paste here, especially on the corners. It's quite difficult to remove, which is telling me that, you know, paste is probably dried up more than it should have, or more than you'd expect from a functional paste. And so I'm quite curious to see what happens with the new one. Okay, well, it's time to take a look at the Duronaut. Just to be clear, I got this from Overclockers UK. It came with a little certificate of origin, which I guess you can check yourself. It says it's genuine. My only thing is, and I think I had some Thermal Grizzly before. One thing I've noticed is that the syringe here, it says Thermal Grizzly. It doesn't say Duronaut anywhere, which is a bit weird. Was expecting maybe that I would say something. Now I'm going to use the spatula to try and distribute the paste on the die. That's how I like doing it. It comes with 2 different ones. I'm not sure I like either of them. Plus, I think there's an applicator. Might be useful, might be not. Probably I'm not going to use this, though. It's I like that it's quite flat. Maybe I can actually use it. Yeah, maybe just to spread it. Let's try this applicator and see how it goes. I am definitely not used to a more viscous paste. It took me forever. I think next time I'll use a plastic card of some sort instead of these supplied applicators. I don't like the nozzle. The paste will accumulate at the edges of it and dig into the freshly applied paste. The spatulas are more or less useless, they're too stiff. The more I was trying, the more I ended up with a little bald patch or imperfection, and I had to try again. The paste tends to peel off the surfaces when applied. I tried warming up the paste with my hotter station, which helped a bit, but the MX4 is definitely simpler to apply. I got somewhere in the end, but I'm really not happy with the outcome. Okay, well, I'm not entirely happy with the outcome. I did read that it was a bit complex to apply. Yeah, let's see how it goes now. Well, at least let me clean the mess here. I know that most of you will probably be screaming at the screen, but hey. Let's see what we get with this. Now, when I'm doing these screws, they're all labeled as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I will definitely do a little bit of 1, then a little bit of 2, a little bit of 3, a little bit of 4, a little bit of 5. The idea is you don't want the heatsink to be attached at an angle first and then the other one. So you want to do this evenly. So I'll start with 1, a few turns, then 2, then 3, then 4, and 5, and then back to 1, and so on. Okay, let's put the lid on, and we'll see if it works, if it still works. And then I guess maybe I'll let it run for a while to allow the paste to, you know, acclimatize a bit. It's quite stiff, so I don't know, I'm assuming it might take a little while for the paste to get to maximum efficiency, even though I believe I might have read somewhere that it doesn't need this type of paste. But you know, let's see what happens. Well, it's still booting up. So yeah, that's a good sign. You never know when you open these things. These things are so fragile. So let me, you know, run it a little bit, make sure there's nothing horribly wrong, like temperature spiking immediately or whatever. And if everything is okay, we will run another test and see whether we got better, worse, same. I'm quite curious, actually. A few days have passed. Let's run Cinebench and see what's changed. I've changed the minimum test duration to off for this test, because now the laptop is marginally faster, just enough to be able to start a second run of rendering within the 10 minutes. When that happens, Cinebench would allow the extra cycle to complete, and that wouldn't be a fair comparison with the previous test, which only did one rendering cycle. And here's the final result. In blue, the temperature before swapping the thermal paste, and in orange with the Duronaut. Now, as I said, without being able to control the fans, well, I think that this test is more or less pointless. But we have an overall improvement of about 1 degree, which again, is that the logic of the system, keeping the fans a bit slower, because now the thermal paste is so much better and we end up with only 1 degree. But if I had been able to set the fan fixed 100%, maybe I would have had a much different result. It's hard to say. What I know is that now Cinebench scored 559 points versus 547 before, so that's a 2% improvement. It's not too much, but it's an improvement. Now, you might notice a complete different behavior at the very beginning of the graph when I start the Cinebench. Well, that's easily explainable. The fans of this laptop are very slow to react to a temperature change. So what must have happened in the first test, the blue graph, is that I probably started Cinebench where the fans were already sped up a bit because of OBS, because of the fact that the computer was in performance mode, so fans were sped up a little bit, so it was easier for the system to bring down the temperature back to 85 degrees or so. With the second test, the orange graph, I must have started the test when the fans were a bit slow, so it's taken a little bit of time for the system to bring them up and bring the temperature down. But you can see that the temperature actually goes down pretty quickly. I'm looking at the orange graph, and the temperatures managed to be lower than the blue graph throughout the duration of the whole test. I'm not sure about that 2% improvement. It could just be some measurement errors. Probably I should have run the test a number of times, do an average on both occasions. Then obviously remember that the ambient temperatures is playing a big factor. I definitely made sure that more or less we had around the same temperature, but I can't be 100% sure. So I think that's more or less like a measurement error. Alternatively, it's just that with a slightly lower temperature, the system was able to push the frequency of the CPU a bit more. I'm comparing the effective clocks of the CPU, the before and after, and you can see that the blue line tends to be a bit higher than the orange one, especially at the beginning, probably, when the CPU was probably still a bit cooler. So was it worth swapping the thermal paste with the Duronaut? Well, obviously we don't see a lot, but once again, we don't have fan control, so I'm not entirely sure. I can tell you that over the past few days, I've used the laptop for my own things. I've been traveling around and I've done some editing on Resolve on this laptop. And I have to say that while I was using Resolve, the fans felt a bit less loud than before. This laptop is a hairdryer when I'm running Resolve, and it felt a bit more comfortable. I monitored the temperature a little bit, and they were not high at all. They were like 60 plus, so very manageable. So maybe it's just psychological thing. It's very possible when you do these things, but I had a feeling that the fans were a bit quieter than before. I'm definitely quite happy. It's always a good idea every now and then to give the cooling system of a small laptop like this a good clean, and I've gained some speed, I've gained a few degrees, so why not? It's definitely something that had to be done at some point anyways. So I'm sorry I can't do a better comparison, but unfortunately, once again, I cannot monitor or control the fans on this laptop. So it is what it is. I hope you enjoyed this video. Anyways, if you did, as usual, I'd appreciate a thumb up down below, and also consider subscribing to this channel and my main channel if you like this kind of things. Don't forget I'm on Facebook and on Patreon, and the link is also down below in the description. There is a free tier on Patreon, so no excuses, but if you don't want to join me on Patreon, which is very much understandable, well, maybe you can buy me a coffee, and the link is also down below in the description. If you don't want to buy me a coffee, well, no worry, I do appreciate your time, and I hope you enjoyed the video. That's it for today. I wish you a great day, thank you for watching, and hope to see you soon here on my channels for my next videos. Thank you very much, and goodbye.